What is interesting to me was setting foot in New York for the third time. And this time I really saw it in a different way. I love the hustle and bustle and the variety of people walking, riding, jogging, cycling, round the streets, round the river. I was staying in New Jersey, and I found it just wonderful to see how people pass their time. But New York is special, I think, because of very often the sheer activity, the life, the way people are. I found people very nice to photograph. I found a guy who reminded me very much of an old photographer called Ouija. He was an American photographer who always seemed to arrive at a crime scene before the police. This guy was standing outside B&H, which is one of New York's biggest photographic stores. And he was there with a camera just like Ouija would have used in the 30s and 40s. I really loved seeing him, speaking to him. And eventually we both decided that I'd take his photograph and he'd take mine. I think his was slightly better. But he said, just make me look good. And that's what I did, and I've included it in some work of mine, which I did in New York. I love the heights of the skyscrapers. The skyscrapers set against the blue sky and the white clouds was just amazing. I love the characters in the street. I love the yellow cabs. But one of the things I really loved photographing this time was a wedding party, the bride and her 10 bridesmaids. She looked just glorious in a white gown. And the 10 bridesmaids were dressed in black. And as they walked down the street, they really did make the street come alive. I couldn't get in the way of the official photographer, but I think I took a pretty good shot. And their joy was something to really cherish. Many people look at things, but very few people see things. Over the years, I think there's one thing that I've learned is the ability to see things, see the unusual, very often see things before they happen. It does help to be a street photographer if you see things just before they happen. I love looking at reflections in the many, many buildings in New York. Reflections can give a change of distortion, a change of image. Everything in photography doesn't have to be in focus. It doesn't have to be perfectly framed. And distortion through reflection is one of the wonders of New York. I remember getting out of my taxi, and I've never seen a car park so alive with color, food, and smoke. Every car seemed to be having a barbecue at the back of it. There was dancing. The whole place was full of green-shirted Mexican supporters. I spoke to many of them. They welcomed me in. I've never had as many tortillas. It was just wonderful. And I said to one Mexican, what is it about this game that makes it different? And he said that this is the game he waits for every year. It's the game where he has a chance to show who he is, what he is, and how proud he is of Mexico. So I walked through chanting crowds, singing crowds on my way to the stadium. I was very lucky enough to go pitch side. So I was able to turn round and face the crowd. And it was there that I saw this young boy almost beckoning for me to take the photograph of him, his family, and those behind him who were cheering and shouting just as he was. And as I held the camera to my eye, he raised a fist, a clenched fist, a fist of dominance. And I thought he was saying, here I am, We are strong. And in the background, I saw the word life. And I thought, yes, young man, you have a good life ahead of you, and best of luck to you. And he caused me to take probably one of the best pictures I've ever taken. I think one of the things about a good photograph is that it tells a story. And very often we ask when somebody looks at a photograph, how did you take that? So people want to know, what was your f-stop, what was the shutter speed, what was your ISO setting? So they want to know the technical side of it. Very few people ask, why did you take it? And I find, why did you take it, a much more interesting question. I've had some people look at my work and be so moved. I remember a man looking at one of my photographs of a Cuban dancer, and he started to cry. And he said it's the most beautiful portrait he's ever seen. And yet I've had people look at a photograph and just walk away. It didn't mean anything to them. It didn't make their heart skip a beat, but it did when I took it. So photographs mean different things to different people. But that photograph of that young supporter, when I took that photograph, my heart skipped a beat. There are certain shapes that work in photography. The S shape is one of them. And when I looked from New Jersey to the city of New York, the city of New York was in mist. It was mysterious. You couldn't make out all the buildings clearly. And in front of me was an S-shaped, they call them sort of wave barriers, leading me into the picture. And this is what we would call a leading line, leading me towards the city of New York. In the foreground was water from the River Hudson breaking gently on the stony shore in front of me. And that was what I used as the foreground. The midground was the wooden frame, S-shaped, leading me to the city in the background. I didn't want to know exactly what was there. I loved looking at New York in the mist. It was a mystery. And I'm glad that it was a mystery, because I think that conjures up all sorts of things. Sometimes I don't want to know the complete story. I want to be able to go there for myself and see it.